All right. So PowerPoint 2, working with multiple conditions, or this is the comorbidities chapter. So the thing is, one of the, like when it comes to working with like specific like diseases or conditions with your clients, a lot of times they interact with one another and, could even be the cause of one another, like someone who is, let's say, obese, right? And so they're maybe struggling with like metabolic syndrome where, maybe they're having like allergic reactions because their body is basically really stressed out. And they're having a really hard time, particularly like abdominal fat. That can lead to diabetes and it can lead to hypertension, and it can be kind of the root cause of like a lot of different things. So we call that a comorbidity. That's a multiple condition. So we actually don't see that definition here in the PowerPoint just yet, but I got it right here. So comorbidities are multiple conditions in an individual that an individual could be dealing with at the same time. So hypertension, high cholesterol, that's another one. High cholesterol often leads to high hypertension, right? So we see individuals who have multiple conditions may have several limitations or different athletic abilities based on their condition. So we talked about this on Friday, where we definitely want to take into account what our client is dealing with, like when it comes to any of their specific diseases or conditions or whatever. We definitely want to take into account their health status. We just want to make sure that we don't fall into this trap of only basing our exercise prescription on, their disease status, right? We want to base it on the individual client, which is always going to be very important. So many of your clients are going to have, our clients are definitely going to have like different athletic abilities, but we want to, and I love this sentence from Friday's lesson. We want to label our clients as functionally, measurably, sorry, I messed up my favorite phrase, measurably functional rather than labeling them as dysfunctional, right? We don't want to see only the disease, we want to see the client. So, looking at that, working with individuals who have like, a lot of comorbidities, right? Exercise is going to invoke these kind of, intense physiologic responses that maybe they're not used to, experiencing, right? That's one of the most important things that we kind of need to keep our eyes on. A lot of times, like we got to remember that like exercise is a very heightened version of, life, right? It's a very heightened version of our normal life, right? There's a lot more stress and things like that. So due to that, and being aware of that, this is where we want to kind of see what our client's functional capacity is, right? This is so funny. I mean, Andres, we were talking about this before the call started. It's so funny because I was just talking about how I got the new edition of the NASM that they came out with earlier this year that Sochi's not working with just yet, because they haven't rolled out the test for it on our students yet. So everybody here, we're still studying the same edition. Don't worry about that. I was like, whatever I said, I'm always like, oh man, that's gonna freak someone out. But we're trying to get ahead of the curve, so I took a glance at the new textbook. And they put a bunch more assessments in there, which I love. And one of them is what's called the VT talk test. And it is a test where you get your client on a treadmill and put them on, warm them up for just a few minutes where they're just walking. Everybody goes at the same pace, about 4 miles per hour. And then every minute on the minute, you raise it by 1/2 mile per hour. So then you go to 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, 7. So then they eventually like work their way up to a jog until eventually they can't really hold a conversation anymore. And so you break down, it's like, okay, well, when you're on the treadmill between like 4 miles an hour and 6 miles per hour, you could hold a conversation super comfortably. We're going to call that your zone 1. Then between like 6.5 miles an hour and like 7.5 miles an hour, that was like, kind of, you were able to talk, but it was like a little uncomfortable. It was like a lot of broken sentences, right? That's going to be your zone 2. And then we got to like 8 miles an hour, and that's where there was no talking, right? We're completely worn out. And you're measuring their heart rate the whole time as well, so you're recording like what their heart rate was, as it stabilized during that minute. And it's a really great test. It's one of my favorites. It does take a long time. It's like it's a 10-minute assessment. And normally our assessments are 1 or 2 minutes each. But that one is great if you have a client and you're really trying to teach them, what it's supposed to feel like in specific zones. They get like long exposure to it and stuff. And I love it because, like, if we're talking about the idea, bringing it back to what we're talking about right now, right? If we're talking about this idea of functional capacity, or we're trying to figure out what our client's functional capacity is, that's one of the things that we're definitely going to, be able to kind of measure using an assessment like that. Because, like, you are paying attention to how, it's based on how they're feeling and how they can hold a conversation. Like, there are physical signs of fatigue, wear and tear, and things like that. So rather than just being, and don't get me wrong, I love a good target heart rate formula, but rather than just like taking the target heart rate and be like, all right, you should be between 130 and 140, and giving them like a flat number. Sometimes clients are just not motivated that way. Sometimes they're just not motivated. Like, I love having like a good heart rate number. I'm a very number person. Other people, not so much. They're like, I want to, they want to based on how they're feeling during the exercise. So, that's something that we want to kind of keep an eye on in the realm of like working with clients who have like specific conditions. If you've got a client with arthritis, could you push them to a certain capacity? Yeah, sure. I mean, like, you could, give them lunges and split squats and maybe, box jumps and stuff. And honestly, maybe it wouldn't actually be all that bad for their arthritis if it's done specifically and like, just the right way and stuff. But if it's going to make your client really uncomfortable and it's going to create a routine that they are not going to adhere to and they're not going to stick to it, then it's not a very good routine, right? So what I like, the way I always like to describe this is like, you could write the world's greatest workout routine, but if you can't get your client to do it, it's not really the greatest routine. So sometimes, like, something that is even a little bit less scientific and just a little more fun can actually have a really positive impact. And the same thing is true with our clients with comorbidities. Maybe sometimes the things that are a little bit less focused on their disease, but are just focused on like keeping your clients in the gym, having a good time, building a healthy lifestyle, actually goes a longer way than, hey, we're struggling with diabetes and obesity. We need you to get this many minutes of cardio every day. And that's like, treadmill is the best way to do that, right? So it's just easy. Hit start button, you go. If your client hates it though, all right, then in that case, like, we want to get out and go for a hike. This is just a slight alternative that is much more functional and fits your client's lifestyle better, right? So that's what we're looking for, right? We love this idea of using exercise to put our clients into an elevated state. And then once we have that elevated state, we are going to sort of analyze that and understand like how they're responding to it. So that's going to tell us a lot about any of the comorbidities that they might be dealing with. Now, when it comes to comorbidities, the biggest one, and you can see the primary source here, is heart disease. Like I said, on Friday, this is the leading cause of death in the US. Crazy, right? Heart disease, this thing that, like, honestly, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, like, some people are born with a bum ticker, you know what I mean? So that sucks. But like, with how many people struggle with like heart disease here in the US, this is essentially an entirely preventable disease. It's from not taking care of this organ, in the same way that if you don't take care of your car and give it regular maintenance, it's going to break down, but it's the leading cause of death, which means that, like, it's everyone's struggling with this, So if we know that, right, if we know that heart disease is a really big thing, it is where most of our conversations are going to circle back to. So you're going to notice for in this course, a lot of what we're going to spend our time talking about is general physical activity and general just cardiovascular exercise. That's the biggest thing we're going to kind of talk about. And you're going to, you know, definitely have things where it's like, well, what about like specific like shoulder exercises for someone who's, you know, trying to like fix their posture and stuff. It's like that, those things are great. And like absolutely posture is like so very key. But because heart disease is just such a common, I mean, you can see like the whole point of this is you can see like all these arrows are feeding back into a million different versions. You know, we know that cardiovascular exercise is and cardiovascular disease are the two biggest things we're going to spend most of our time looking with, which is just general activity, like just get out, go for a walk, you know. And Andres and Bay and myself, you know, like I know that, you know, where it's like, walk's not really all that intense. Like I'm not really going to improve my cardio by doing a walk. No, you're really not. But it is going to have just as much positive effect in terms of like keeping your heart at a baseline healthy level as anyone else, which is great. You know, that's what we're looking for. So there's kind of a difference where we're looking sort of at the difference. So we call it sub-maximal exercise. And that's something that we're definitely going to kind of analyze when we talk about this idea of comorbidities. We do sub-maximal exercise because that ensures that we're not triggering any of the negative side effects that kind of come along with some of these diseases. So how the heck do you know? How do you know how hard to work a client, right? Like, how do you know, what the right version of cardio is? Should it be a walk? Should it be a jog? Like, which version, right? Well, that's going to be where it's very important for us as fitness professionals to do fitness assessments, right? So in regards to fitness assessments, right, really the big ones that we're going to look at, and there's kind of 4 key categories here. We are going to see aerobic assessments, things like the Ymca 3-minute step test is a really good example, or the Rockport walk test. Both those are sort of the standard versions that are in your textbooks, and they're both really, really great. They work a little bit differently than one another. The Ymca step test is basically, I wonder if there's like a graphic for this that just kind of has everything in one picture. No, I don't think so. All right. Well, anyway, you're gonna set up a step that is 12 inches high. So you set up a 12-inch high step, and you have your client climb that step like right foot, left foot, and then they go back down, right foot, left foot, up, up, down, down, up, up, down, down, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, you know, just over and over and over again, for exactly 3 minutes. Actually, you know what? Here we go. Here's all the rules right here. And they're very pixelated. So you have them do that for exactly 3 minutes in length, right? And they go at a pace of 96 steps per minute. So what that means is you're basically going to set a metronome to 96, and that's beats per minute, and left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, up, up, down, down. And the reason we do that is because that is at a very specific pace. And everyone who's ever done the step test has gone at that specific pace. And because it's the 12-inch step, which means everyone who's ever done it has gone at the same height. And we've all done it for exactly 3 minutes in length, which means everyone's done it for the same duration. Then everybody who's ever done the 3-minute step test has been given the same amount of stress as anyone else who's ever taken the step test. It's it controls all the variables and makes it very specific, you know? And what that does is, because that puts exactly the same amount of stress on everyone's heart, what we do, rather than measuring what their heart rate is at the end of the assessment, because that could be different for everyone, what we'll do is we have our client, once the test is over, they turn around and they sit on the step, they present their arm, and you immediately start counting their pulse. And rather than, counting what their pulse is the minute the assessment's over, right? We're not doing it for 6 seconds and then multiplying by 10 or anything like that to figure out it's like, oh, it's at 140 right now, right? Like we're not doing that. What we do is we count the number of beats over the next 60 seconds. And so what's happening is their heart rate's gonna be really quick after the end of the assessment. And then as they're sitting there, their heart rate's gonna kind of calm down and get back to a normal rhythm. And once it gets back to that normal rhythm, right, or not once it gets back to that normal rhythm, but whatever it gets back to at the end of 60 seconds of counting, that's their recovery pulse. It's how many beats their heart rate slowed down. And so what we did is we gave everyone a certain amount of stress, and then we measured how long it took them to slow down. The way I always like to think about it is like, imagine if you took like a baseball and a bowling ball and a basketball, and you accelerated all of them to 1 mile per hour. All of them are traveling the exact same speed with this little, you get a mechanical arm that's going to push them. And that mechanical arm's traveling 1 mile per hour exactly. So it's transferring exactly 1 mile per hour of speed to all three of these balls. They're all going to roll different lengths, Baseball is probably going to roll the least amount of length because it's very, very light, which means wind resistance is going to have a greater effect on it. And it's got the threading in it, which is going to slow it down. The bowling ball is very, very heavy. It's probably going to have the most momentum. So it'll probably keep going for quite some time. And the basketball will probably maybe be somewhere in the middle, I would assume. Well, I don't know. So right, like, so that's how that's going to kind of approach, right? They're all going to kind of go at different paces. Well, we're going to measure the distance, right? We're going to measure the distance they travel to measure which one had the most sort of kinetic energy attached to it. That's exactly what we're doing with the step test, right? We're basically measuring how well someone's heart is recovering after a very specific amount of exercise. So we look at like what their age is, right? Let's say, and this is the women's table up top, and this is the men's table down below. So we take a look, and let's say our client is like 42, right? So they're going to be in this column right here. And let's say their heart rate recovered to 118, right? That would put them between 115 and 120. So that'd put them in the below average category. So because they're below average, when it comes to assigning them a cardiovascular routine, I don't want to go too intense. I don't want to push their heart hard enough that number one, they're going to hate exercising forever. So that's not wise. And number two, I don't want to push them hard enough because it could cause some type of injury, especially if they're dealing with any like specific disease. So that's the step test. Bay, I think that's the first time you've ever heard this. I know, Andres, you've heard this one before, but does that make sense, Bay? Any questions on how the step test works?
No, it's fine.
Pretty clear?
Yeah.
Cool. Now, the other one that is totally different is the Rockport walk test. And the Rockport walk test is a little bit simpler to administer because literally it's like step one, start walking, and there is no step two. It's like you get your client on a treadmill. I don't like doing it on treadmills personally, but it works really well around like a track. And you put your client there and you go, okay, great. Now you are going to walk exactly 1 mile. And so they walk that mile as fast as they can. They're not allowed to break into a jog. And you're going to measure a couple different pieces of information. So you're going to measure how long it took them to finish the assessment. So the number of minutes and the number of seconds. So let's say it took your client 14 minutes and 18 seconds. And you're going to measure what their heart rate is at the end of the assessment. So this is very different. Than the step test, right? The step test was a recovery pulse. This, I want to know what your heart rate is the second you're done with the test. So we're probably going to do 6 seconds and we're going to add a 0 to the end. Because that way, like if we were to count for a full 60 seconds, the heart rate's going to come down, right? We don't want that to happen. Or if they're wearing a heart rate monitor, great. Whatever the heart rate monitor says in that moment that their heart rate is, the second the test is over, that's what we want to see. So let's say this person's heart rate is like 145, right? And then you're actually going to put in your client's sex, age, and weight. So let's say we said somebody was 30, was it 40, 43? And let's say they weigh 189 pounds, right? We had a female client before. So we'll hit calculate here. So what's cool is like, this is going to give us, you know, how many METs they burned, which I love, by the way. That's kind of fun. It's like, hey, you burned 9 times as many calories for that mile than you would have if you were sitting on the couch. You know, it's great. Tells us their Vo2 max, which is kind of nice. It estimates what their oxygen consumption is. We know the more oxygen you can consume, the better shape you're in. It means you have more mitochondria. It means you have more hemoglobin, right? We want to be able to consume lots and lots and lots of oxygen. So we see a 32 there, whereas the population's average is also around 32. It's actually 31, so it's ever so slightly above average. So they got like a 55 in terms of score. You know, they're in the 55th percentile, which is good. So that puts them in the average category. So if my client was average, I'd say, hey, you know what? Like, you're doing really well cardiovascularly. You know, I'm going to give you some interval training. Like, I can be a little bit more intense about how I apply my cardio. Now, if my client's heart rate was 155, right? And let's say it took them, you know, 16 minutes and 18, you know, we're going to add 2 minutes. This is a substantial amount of time. We hit calculate here. We can see now their Vo2 max was only 24. So that's an 8-point drop. Population average is still going to be 31, right? That's what we expect to see in 43-year-olds. So that puts them in the 9th percentile, which is not ideal, right? Not super great there. You know, they're below the 10% there. So we're that's gonna put them in the poor category, which means that we're gonna be pretty gentle with this person, right? We're probably gonna give them some pretty gentle workouts. And just for the sake of argument, let's see what happens if we have like a 13 minutes and their heart rate's like 120. That person's crushing it. That person's at a 92. They're in the excellent category. Their Vo2 max is 39. That means that this person is getting like high intensity interval training. So, you know, we had one person who we're just going to do some steady state cardio so that we can build a foundation, right? That's being gentle. I just want you to go for a walk a couple times a week, right? I just want you to get on a treadmill, 20 minutes, step 1, you know, there is no step 2, right? Just start walking. Or go for a gentle hike, you know, go for a walk with friends. And then the second version is like, all right, we're going to make this a little bit more intense. Now, when you're on that hike, I want you to really put the effort in on the hills and try to get up them as fast as possible. And then, you know, recover and walk slowly on the flats. So now you're kind of introducing a little bit of interval training without getting like completely out of breath. And you're going to instruct your client, like, I don't want you to get to a place where you're completely exhausted. I just want you to get to a place where it's a little bit more challenging to breathe, right? Clients on the treadmill, right? It would be like, okay, I want you to do 3 minutes at a walking pace on the treadmill. And then every 3 minutes, you go for 1 minute, you're going to raise the incline up, or you're going to raise the speed by 2 miles per hour, something that's going to get their heart rate up without making them like out of breath, right? But then that third client, like this version right here, we're gonna be mean. Yeah, like they're in the 92nd percentile, right? Like that person's getting full on sprints, you know. We're gonna try and get them out of breath. So that's what I kind of like about the Rockport walk test. It's a pretty easy assessment. And it tells you a lot about their cardiovascular health. And when it comes to cardiovascular health, that's one of the biggest priorities that we have. So we're definitely going to pay a lot of attention to that. Now, we do also have our postural assessments, right? So we've got aerobic assessments. Those are the two big ones. And then we've got postural assessments, right? Postural assessments looking at either static posture, which is, you know, literally just how your client sits in a neutral position, or stands, rather. And then we're also going to have like dynamic postural assessments, which are assessments that, you know, occur during movement. So squatting. What happens to your client's posture if you make them do a squat? Do they have any compensations? Do they have any alterations? What about like a single leg squat? What if you have them do a little bit of balance, like or what if you have them do like a lunging, right? Some type of like transitional assessment, right? Where they're changing like their body position and direction. You know, what happens with their posture. So both those are really helpful, because that is the type of assessment that we use to determine, you know, our clients' like over and underactive muscles. You know, like I just got a new client. We were working with the postural assessment here. And if you look, you can see like there's certain things where it's like, okay, the feet are turning out, right? We see the knees caving in, right? So that tells me certain things. If the feet are turning out and the knees are caving in, I know there's going to be some tightness in that biceps femoris short head hamstring muscle, some tightness in the TFL, some tightness in the lateral part of the calves, right? And we're going to see some weakness in like the gluteus medius and maximus. So postural assessments are also very, very, very helpful because they can also be something that you use to take the aches and pains off of your client, which again, if our priority is going to be cardiovascular health, getting aches and pains to go away so that our client will do that cardiovascular exercise will always be a priority. And you know, that's one of the things. Like what I always say, you know, people will always say you can't out exercise a bad diet, which is very true. You know, like you cannot out exercise. I mean, like a poor diet will defeat no matter however much exercise you are doing. Trust me. However, you cannot eat your way to a good posture. You know. So it is kind of a combination. We need both those things in our life to be effective. We're also going to see endurance assessments. This is another one, right? Endurance assessments, which are a little bit more of the more intense version of cardiovascular assessments. Now, a lot of clients, you actually won't be doing endurance assessments because they're pretty intense, especially if your client has like a lot of comorbidities, right? But the intermittent shuttle test, the pacer test, this is a really kind of a fun one. If we look at pacer test calculator, the pacer test, also known as the beep test, is literally, let's see, I'll pull up the example here. Pacer beep test.
The Fitness Gram Pace is a multi-stage aerobic capacity test that progressively gets more difficult as it continues. Remember to run in a straight line and run as long as possible. On your mark, get ready, start.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
That's so funny. That's a great intro to the video, because that's the track actually that plays when you do the pacer test. So it starts as like, well, the pacer test is this, and it's like run in a straight line, and you're gonna run 20 yards. 20 meters. You're gonna run 20 meters to a cone, and then you're gonna run back, and you're gonna do as many laps as you can from cone to cone to cone. And the pace is like pretty slow at first, like beep, and takes a little while, beep, right? And you have to get to the cone before the next beep happens, and then when the next beep happens, you have to run back. And so you're and the beeps get faster and faster and faster. So what happens is it's putting more and more and more stress. So you can see here,
You can see
everyone is kind of doing this. It's a great assessment for doing like large groups of clients. You know, I used to do pacer test. Someone wearing Crocs. I used to do a pacer test every now and then in my boot camps. Actually, we would do it about every 6 months or so, and it'd be a fun way for people to kind of test themselves. It's like, hey, I got a 16 on the first one, and then I got like an 18 on the second one, so I'm improving cardiovascular wise. And this can also be used to estimate your Vo2 max. So, you know, some people are going to go a little bit faster, some people are going to be a little bit slower, but they're all getting there before the beep, happens, right? And so eventually, 29 laps, they've done like 1,000 meters, right? And at the most, this is going to last 15, 16 minutes for the really like super elite clients who are just, crushing it. Yeah, here we go. 116 laps. That's really impressive, actually. 116, that's wild. So you enter your age, right? Again, let's say we got our our 43-year-old client, right? You enter their level that they got, and their number of shuttles that they got. So they got to, like, let's say, you know, this person, it actually doesn't say in this video here, but 116 laps. I think it's like, that's 116 divided by 5. Whoops, 116. Yes, they get to like level 23. And then they did 116. I calculate there. Oh, 100. I must have calculated that wrong. What is that? 121, 0, and 16. Is it 16 really? Okay, 7.25. So we have like level 7 and 1. So this person got like a 36.8 in this version, right? If they are 43, yeah. So above average, which is great, right? That's exactly what we're looking for. So it's kind of nice. You can kind of punch that in. That's kind of interesting. Normally the calculators, there's like one piece of info to enter. It's like, what level did you get to? Because it knows what the other ones are. Yeah, there it is. Like, what's your number of shuttles? So age, 23. No, there's the level again. What? That's so weird. Well, anyway, that's the pacer test. That's a much more advanced kind of intense assessment. And it's used for group settings. So in like a team setting, it's great. Are you going to do it with our clients who have like specific comorbidities? Probably not. Not something we're going to see in a traditional gym setting with most of our, like, you know, heart disease clients. But other endurance assessments include just a simple 1 mile run. And you're going to literally assess how fast your client can run a mile. So there's different things we're looking at, right? Like in our aerobic assessments, we are testing. This is like what's slightly different between aerobic versus endurance assessments, right? Aerobic assessments are testing how well is the heart functioning. Endurance assessments are testing how well the client as a whole is functioning in specific like athletic categories. Does that make sense? Like the difference there, right? Like how fast I can run a mile. Maybe I can run a mile slightly faster than someone else, but maybe my heart really struggles, you know, like maybe I'm like my aerobic system is just not keeping up. Like I was able to push because maybe, you know, I have a higher pain tolerance or maybe just like a little more effort and the other person was taking it easy. But the other person, like, you know, they may have run the mile slower, but their heart rate was also much, much lower at the end of the assessment. You know, if it was used aerobically, I'd be taking a look at the heart rate. But if I'm, you know, looking at like their athleticism, I would measure the however long it took them to perform the run. So that's the difference between like endurance and aerobic assessments. They're kind of similar, but different. And then we are going to see like neuromuscular assessments. So neuromuscular assessments are going to be things that are related somewhat to your client's balance and their agility, right? Their ability to change direction and stabilize. So the single leg balance assessments are a really great one. That's literally just having your client stand on one leg and see if they balance or if they like shift their posture at all. Slightly more advanced than that. Well, definitely more advanced than that is the STAR Excursion assessment, which is also a really good one. This one is kind of cool. Your client reaches with their opposite leg at a very specific angle. So they're gonna, you know, stand on the left leg and stand on the right. They're gonna go like front 45-degree angle, side 45-degree angle, and they kind of work their way around. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna measure how far away they can reach, which you're not really seeing in this picture here. I mean, you can kind of see it if you look closely, you can see like they got it marked on the floor there, and there are these lines. You're measuring how far this person can reach at every specific angle. And you'll actually see these STAR Excursion mats for sale sometimes. There's this version where, you know, this person would basically probably just mark the floor with like a, I don't know, Post-it or a sticky note or something, and just like put a little mark there. And then they would measure how many inches away from the center they have really good balance. But you'll see these interesting mats sometimes that they'll sell that look like this. And you place like a cone to wherever your client can reach and stuff. And that's nice because like that gives you like a bunch of point of references, but you don't need it. I mean, honestly, we used to have at the old Sochi, we used to literally just have this taped on the floor. But yeah, you can see different versions there, and it's cool. It's a very good assessment for kind of testing your client's overall balance, and then you just measure. Yeah, actually, there's the kind of classic mat version. You just measure how many inches away they can improve their balance, you know, over the course of however long you're working with them. So, you know, if you're working with them and their balance gets better over time, you know, that's something that's going to motivate your client, and obviously, it's going to be very good for their entire neuromuscular system, because we know that balance is related to recruiting the right muscle at the right time. You know, that's our neuromuscular efficiency. And then there's the Shark skill test, which is sort of the really advanced version of the STAR excursion test. And this is one of my favorite assessments just because it's very fun to perform. But it is where you are going to have your client sit in a 3x3 grid, so in 9 boxes. They're going to stand in the center and they're going to jump from box to box to box. And you're going to measure how long it takes them to complete. So they keep their hands on their hips. They're not allowed to set the other foot down until the assessment is over. And they jump from box to box to box to box. This guy's kind of taking a little easy. You can see he's not exactly like pushing himself to go super fast or anything. But that's what it looks like. And so you're going to assess, and he does every box, and then the assessment's over, right? Because he started in the center. So he just goes center and then to the side. You can see he landed in the wrong box there for a second and had to adjust. So you do give your client a 0.1 second penalty if their hands come off their hips, if their foot touches the ground, or if they step into the wrong box. And there we go. So that's kind of a fun one, right? Like that's similar to the single leg squats, testing like your single leg balance and stuff. But it's a little bit more intense because obviously it involves like jumping around. So that's a lower body agility assessment, actually. So that's testing the agility there, which is very much related to how our neuromuscular system works together. It's how your brain's controlling your muscles, right? So big thing to remember, you know, whenever we're talking about assessments, I know I kind of harp on this every time it comes up, but, you know, the big thing that you're going to look for when it comes to any assessment is accuracy, meaning that like you need to measure consistently. Reliability, which means also it needs to be something you can repeat and you can repeat in the same way. And then obviously it should always be safe. But that's my favorite way to kind of highlight like consistency is this is one of my favorite types of tape measures that you can get, where when you pull on this, it actually has this little plastic bit that you thread into the hole on the other side. And then what you do is you hit this button right here, and that pulls on the, I probably totally put this in upside down. That pulls on the tape measure, and it will always pull for the same amount of tension because there's a spring inside that does that. So that means that every time I do this, it's pulling the exact same amount, which means it's a very reliable, very accurate way for me to measure my client's inches, which is what we want to strive for in all of our assessments. We always want to make sure we're being as accurate and reliable as possible. It should be very repeatable. You don't want to, trust me, you don't want to have a client like measure their chest measurements or their waist or their hips or whatever. And then one week you're pulling super tight so their inches go down. And the next week you're kind of loose with your grip. And it's like, oh, you gained an inch, you know? Then all of a sudden your client thinks the program's not working. They think they're doing something wrong. They get dejected. You know, we got to make sure we're always being as accurate as possible. So how do we do that? How do we ensure that our assessments are very repeatable? Well, this is where SOAP notes comes in. This is where SOAP notes come to the rescue. Writing a description of the procedures that you performed specifically and like any adjustments that you made in your SOAP notes and keeping those written down is going to make sure it's very easy for you to repeat that. So here's a really good example. So during the waist measurement, there is no apparent narrowing. So normally when we do a waist measurement, very different than how you do it for like a tailor. When we're doing the waist measurement, we always go at the narrowest part of the waist. So we see this like little, inward bulge here. We get the kind of the love handles off to the side here. We don't do the measurement down here. We do the measurement like here in sort of, I would actually maybe even go all the way up here with this guy. Now, if there is no apparent narrowing, if your client like is just like a flat line, if that's the case, then you are going to do it on the belly button, right? You got to go right over the top of the navel, which is what they're doing in this picture here. So narrowest part of the waist, or if that isn't around and you can't see that, you go to the belly button. So we always, always, always do our waist measurement that way. And so we're going to write that down. So in this version, it's like, hey, we took the measurement at the belly button, which means in a couple of weeks, if we repeat, we need to take it at the belly button. Oh, excuse me, guys. Primary goals here in terms of like the training. So let's say, we've got our assessment protocols all kind of written out. Right. Now we got to kind of look at the idea of like, all right, well, let's build a foundation of cardio first. That should always be our first priority, because again, the cardiovascular system is where we see most diseases. And no, doing cardio is not going to help with your posture, right? Which we also know is very important. It's not going to help you build big muscles, which we also know is very important. But with a big priority for like maintaining a healthy life is having your cardiovascular system strong. So it usually is our first priority, which is funny because when I say that, I know a lot of people are probably like, it's not my first priority. I hate cardio. Well, don't forget, like lifting weights can still be considered cardio. You just have to do it specifically. So our primary goals are, number one, to mediate the effect of a particular condition that's limiting your client's capacity. So if you have a client who has, like, let's say hypertension, you want to prioritize cardiovascular exercise because that can strengthen their heart, which can help them regulate their blood pressure throughout the rest of their life. So their heart gets stronger, it gets used to exercising slowly, right? Obviously, we're gonna be safe when we do this. And that has a very positive effect on their overall cardiovascular system, which improves every aspect of their life. They're going to have more energy throughout the day. They're going to get nauseous less often. They're going to have spotty vision more often, like all the things that kind of come along with general hypertension. And they may need less medication, which is great, So that should always be sort of the first thing we consider cardio for. It's there to, mediate the limiting effects of our client, right? Like if that hypertension's holding them back, let's start doing some cardio so we can stop being held back, It can also increase the neural control of your vascular system, which is really, really great. Big fan of that, right? That's a really big one. You're by recruiting like skeletal muscle to propel you during like cardio, like, while you're doing cardio, your body's like, oh man, we need to get blood flow to the legs. Or, maybe it's upper body, right? But it's going to increase your blood vessel control. That's going to get your blood vessels better at dilating and constricting. This is one of the reasons, and I'm going to say this right now, but it'll come back, especially in a couple of days. When we do look at hypertension, one of the biggest things that works incredibly well with our clients is doing what is called a peripheral heart action circuit. And what that means is you do circuit training, which is, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever, exercises in a row. No rest in between, right? I do my push-ups, I immediately get up and I start doing my bicep curls, right? No rest. That's a circuit. But this one, we have one extra rule. You are going to be very specific about that circuit. You are going to go from upper body to lower body, and then back to upper body, and then back to lower body. So it might be a chest exercise followed by something that's pretty heavy for the quads, followed by a back exercise, followed by something that's pretty heavy for the hamstrings, followed by like a shoulder exercise, followed by something that's pretty heavy for the glutes, right? So we go up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And what that does is it literally does repetitions for your blood vessels, right? Like, because you start doing a lower body exercise and your body goes, oh crap, we need to dilate all the blood vessels to the legs. And so shoo, they open up and boom, lots of blood heads to the legs, right? And they constrict the blood vessels up to the upper body because you only have so much blood, right? So it constricts blood vessels elsewhere and sends all the blood to the legs. And then all of a sudden you start doing shoulder presses and your body's like, what? Oh God, we got to get over there now, right? And so like it constricts all the blood to the legs and opens up all the blood vessels to the upper body. So you are literally doing reps in your blood vessels. And that's why peripheral heart action has been shown to be so effective. It's a really great way to train. So that is going to be one of our primary goals as well. And then honestly, one of the biggest ones is, and that's neural control, by the way. That's your brain learning how to control, increased blood vessel control to skeletal muscle fibers. And then cardio is also going to generally increase the heart's ability to pump blood over long distances, which is really great, right? Your heart's going to get better at like actually, ejecting blood to wherever it needs to go. But then also one of the great ones, it improves your endothelial function. So it improves like blood vessels' ability to actually, constrict and relax. Woo, constrict and relax are the words that I'm trying to say. It will actually improve that ability, because a lot of times those arteries are going to get stiff, right? They get plaque and cholesterol built up on them and stuff. So by constricting them, you're kind of shaking all that stuff off, which is great. I mean, so good for you. It can also, in the realm of like diabetes, enhance the metabolism of carbohydrates, which is kind of nice. So it'll actually like make you more sensitive to insulin, because your body will go, oh yeah, like, insulin's there, and it's like, hey, I'm trying to get this sugar out of the blood. Can we either store it as glycogen, use it for energy, or convert it into fat? And your body cells are like, no, you kind of are down here all the time, right? They're like, we're kind of tired of having to deal with you, insulin, so your body becomes sort of immune to it. And that's what diabetes is, right? And so now insulin doesn't have the effect that it used to. It just leaves that sugar in your blood. But if you start doing exercise, particularly aerobic exercise and particularly intense exercise, what happens is like you need to burn glucose as a fuel source. So your body is like insulin comes along, it's like, hey, can I get the sugar out of the blood? And your cells are like, heck yeah, we need sugar. We're stoked to work. Heck yeah, bring it on, And so it actually increases the sensitivity to that insulin. And that's exactly what we want. So primary goals are going to improve that peak aerobic capacity. Like we talked about, we're going to try to improve like how well the heart rate actually works. We want to improve the neural control and the vascular function. So we want to get better at sending blood up, sending blood down, sending blood up, sending blood down. And we want to improve that endothelial production. And then I forgot, this is not in here, but particularly when it comes to endothelial production function, we are looking at the coronary arteries in particular. Remember, your heart is covered in its own arteries, right? Arteries send blood throughout the rest of your body after it's ejected from the heart. But you'll notice the first place it goes, like normally, like blood's going to float out here, up this arch, and then loop down behind the heart there. But like it's immediately going to branch right off of that big tube. The first thing that gets oxygen delivery is the heart itself. Your heart heard, when you're on an airplane and it's, they're always talking about like, during like the in-flight, they're like safety measures. They're like, if a sudden drop in cabin pressure happens, air masks will descend from the ceiling. always secure your own air mask before helping others to secure theirs, which seems very selfish. I mean, I always had a problem with that when I was younger. And then I realized it's like, oh, well, if I don't secure mine and then all of a sudden I pass out, I can't help anybody. But if I can secure mine first, then I'm available to help either people to either side of me. That actually makes a lot of sense. This is a very good thing to be selfish in this. Well, your heart, the first thing that it does is it ensures that it has oxygen and blood flow before anything else. Those are your coronary arteries, and it's very important to keep those healthy. So when we talk about improving endothelial function, we really are definitely talking about the coronary arteries. But, you know, at the same time, it is all arteries. It's all veins as well throughout the body. So, all right. So that's kind of a lot of like specific information. And what's kind of funny is, you know, I said at the beginning of this lesson, one of the priorities that we're going to go for is simply getting our clients moving in general, right? A lot of like just general activity has very positive effects, right? So our general approach to program design, here's how we're going to go about it, right? Here's how we're going to kind of sort of start to finish consider when we're writing a program. So first, always review what you know about the exercise as it relates to your client's conditions. So if you have a client who, let's say, has osteoporosis, right? We know that that means low bone density. And we know that foam rolling is contraindicated for osteoporosis. Contraindicated means something that you should avoid. Because, like, you know, you think about like what foam rolling is, right? Look at someone's calves, right? Like, you're putting a lot of pressure on this very little amount of surface area, and you're flexing their bones, right? They don't have very dense bones. So if you're upright like this and your entire body weight is kind of causing it to flex, it could cause like fractures in a very negative way. And that means that your client, you know, so we got to be cautious there, right? So we always review what you know about your client's condition and how that relates to specific exercises. So you can just eliminate anything that you need to eliminate right away. And then, well, consider those things first. Don't just eliminate them out of nowhere. Then can evaluate your client, right? Actually, like maybe test the waters a little bit, perform an assessment and figure out like, you know, yeah, is it actually contraindicated? Like my client has osteoporosis, but I asked them to foam roll their upper back and that was fine, right? Like it's like the other ones I need to be a little cautious with. They can foam roll their glutes, that was fine, right? There's like specific ones that are probably okay. And then other joints where it's like, nah, it's probably gonna be a little bit too much pressure. So evaluate your client specifically. If your client was doing very poorly in cardiovascular exercise, you're gonna evaluate that so that you don't give them something that's too hard. Consider what unique characteristics about your client don't fit your knowledge base. So always you need to consider like what research you need to do. What do you need to consider when it comes to working with your client? If your client tells you that their job is like puts them on call and they experience, you know, where they have to like go do X, Y, and Z at the drop of a hat any minute, how is that going to, you know, if you've never really like worked on it, maybe learn a little bit about like what that schedule looks like, right? Like just ask your clients like, okay, walk me through like a typical way, do a little bit more research. And that research can literally just be a conversation with your client. Or maybe your client says like, oh yeah, I had this, the doctors called it blah, blah, blah type of fracture. And you know, that's the type of fracture that maybe doesn't heal very quickly. Right. So then you look that up. It's like, okay, well, physical activity is going to be okay this week, but we should be cautious when it comes to like, you know, this area of the body in particular. Do what research you need to do, you know. Always ask your client what their goals and their objectives are. And always, it's not on here, but this is important. Always make sure that your client is the one to set those goals. We are there to guide our clients for sure. But your client's goals should always be self-determined. We are a guide, not a dictator, I guess. So figure out what your client's goals and objectives are. What's important to them? Why are they doing this? So often people will come and they're like, well, you know, I want to lose weight. I want to get healthy. And it's like, well, sometimes those aren't necessarily the same thing. Why do you want to lose weight? It's like, well, you know, I'm hoping to, you know, improve my health so I can be around for my grandkids. All right, so, you know, then the weight is not what's important to you. We'll track your weight for sure. But I'm going to put a lot of emphasis on how you're feeling. I'm going to put a lot of emphasis on, like, you know, do you feel like you have more energy throughout the day? Right. So get to the heart of like what your client's specific goals are. And then determine what they're currently able to do. So figure out, like, you know, you could write a program that's like, hey, we're going to get you committed to working out 6 days a week. And if your client doesn't have the ability to do that with their schedule, then it's not going to be very effective, right? So we need to determine what they're currently actually able of participating in, both physically and, you know, kind of schedule wise. And then prioritize the parts of the program that are primarily suited to your client's goals. This is the fun one, right? You want to make sure that, like, you're kind of always tying things back in your workout to what it is your client is working on. So the client I pulled up earlier, for instance, has really bad arthritis in her knees. So that's a big priority for her. So, like, I'm constantly during our sessions going to be mentioning, like, this is going to be really good for your knees. We're going to do this next. You're going to do blah, 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 and that's going to be really good for your knees. You know, like, it's just going to be something we kind of consistently mention in really, really positive ways. So always prioritize bringing back to your client's goals. Not only, like, that's so good because, like, not only does it ensure that your client is stoked to exercise because they're like, yeah, like, I'm working on the things I want to work on. This is doing it. I'm finally meeting my goals, and they're gonna be motivated, and it's great. But also, guys, like, it's a great way to, like, kind of guide you. It makes your job easy. You're like, you want to do this? Great. That means boom, boom, boom. 3 exercises filled out, onto a workout sheet, done, easy. So prioritize their goals. And then, and this is what's kind of fun, integrate an exercise component into their overall lifestyle plan. So this is huge. This is where I always try to get my clients to start adopting healthy behaviors as a lifestyle rather than just seeing exercise as, like, this chore that they have to do. Like, we all have to do our dishes. We all got to take a shower. We all got to brush our teeth and floss. Maybe that last one I'm not so great at, but, you know, we all have to do all these things, you know, as part of, you know, our chores. We got to pay our bills, you know, we got to go to work, all the classic stuff, right? And we do all those things because they're a means to an end, which is like a healthy, happy, productive life, right? Well, a lot of people don't see exercise as that. They see exercise as, you know, they do see it like as that. They see it as a chore. And it's like, yeah, I got to do this thing that I hate, but, you know, I'm going to look really good afterwards. Or I'm going to feel really good afterwards. So I'm going to do this thing that I hate. I still hate it, but I'm going to do it. And that might be okay. Like, that might keep your client coming back because maybe they really are motivated by that whatever end is, right? So they're able to put up with the means to get to the end. But, like, they're just gonna be miserable. I mean, like, this, it's not enjoyable for them, right? So it's like, why are you doing this? What I like to get my clients, it's like, I want them to integrate physical activity into their life and enjoy it. You know, I want it to be like, we got to figure out, like, what it is that they're going to be super, like, stoked for, you know? Babe, we were talking a little bit about this. It seems like you're kind of motivated. You like the idea of, like, strength improvements, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, that's motivating, right? It's exciting because you're like, dude, I put another 5 pounds on the bar today, you know? It's like a fun hobby because you're like, how far can I push myself, right? That's kind of what you're testing the waters with. And it's like, how well can I do this? You know, that's so exciting and kind of fun. It's an interesting hobby. Not every client's going to feel that way about throwing an extra 5 pounds on the bar. But if you can find something that gets them excited about it, where they're adopting it into their like lifestyle, that's great. I had a weird thing one time. I'm not saying this is actually something you should do. But one thing, I had a client who, this is so weird. But I was trying to get them to like adopt more physical activity. And so the two of us, he and I, brainstormed how we are going to do that. And what we came up with, one of the ways that we were just like, it was like, all right, we're going to get you into the habit of like doing burpees. And it was every time he entered his apartment or anytime he left his apartment, if he crossed the threshold of his front door, he had to do 5 burpees. And it was a funny thing for him, right? It was weird, right? And this was like partly his idea, by the way. Like I didn't fully only come up with this, but it was fun for him. And what really worked really well is it was weird that he had to do it in the hallway of his apartment complex. Like he wouldn't do it before he walked the door. He was like, no, it's after I crossed the threshold. So he'd do it like right as he got in, but he would also do it like after he left. And it ended up leading to his neighbors asking him like, hey, what are you doing? Like, what's going on? But then that led to a conversation, and he ended up like bringing this person from his apartment. They signed up for the gym, and they would carpool. I did an assessment with them. They didn't sign up for personal training, but it was cool, right? Like that's kind of a fun way. He adopted it into his healthy lifestyle, and it was kind of a fun thing. So that's a weird one, by the way. Like, I don't actually recommend doing that, but that's a weird example that I did once. Here's what we want to get to. Here's where we want to get. The USDA, and this is a number you guys want to have memorized. Trust me, you'll see this question in your homework. You'll see this question on your test. The USDA recommends, actually it's the CDC. It's both really. But the CDC recommends 150 minutes of moderate intensity activity per week. So that means that you want to make sure that you are getting the bare minimum here. That is not to improve your health, that is to maintain your health. So what we need to see is everyone gets about 150 minutes. That's 30 minutes of like a light walk every single day. Well, not even every day, Monday through Friday. If you go Monday through Friday for a 30-minute walk, listen to a podcast, watch an episode of YouTube, something, listen to a little bit of an audiobook, just 30 minutes of walking. That's enough to keep yourself healthy. That is enough to like have really, really positive effects on your heart and everything. And here's the thing, alternatively, if you don't want to do 30 minutes every day, Monday through Friday, you could do 75 minutes per week if it was high intensity. So if you can commit to 15 minutes where you're actually getting out of breath and being a little bit like more intense about it, and like you're getting like the heart rate really up, you can get the exact same benefits in half the amount of time. 15 minutes, right? I always tell people it's like that's 4 Tabatas, right? A Tabata is 20 seconds on with 10 seconds of rest. If you were to literally repeat this 4 times, squat jumps, push-ups, burpees, sit-ups, squat jumps, push-ups, burpees, sit-ups. That's 1, 2, 30. That's 1, 2. Yeah, this is a Tabata. This is 4 minutes. So then let's say you copied this format, and instead of doing squat jumps, burpees, squat jumps, push-ups, burpees, and then sit-ups, if you change that to lunges, bent over row, curl to press, 20-second plank, repeat that 4 times, and then do one that's like cardio based, like jumping jacks, mountain climb. If you basically did 4 of these back to back to back to back, that's enough. That is enough to have like a really, really positive effect. let's see if there is a 15-minute Tabata that's just kind of already out there. No, yeah, the original Tabata, by the way, like there wouldn't be a 15-minute Tabata. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Here's 4 of them that you can kind of put together, right? Burpees, jumping jacks, repeat back and forth. Burpees, jumping jacks, burpee, right? And then mountain climbers, high knees, squat jumps, ice skaters, kettlebell swings, and jump rope. This is great. I love this actually. If you do this in 15 minutes, whew, get, big calorie burn right off the bat, top of the day, 15 minutes out of your life. So, and that will, that's high intensity, right? So that's super convenient and honestly, not that hard to do. Looking at our general guidelines here, right? This is where we come back to the idea of, what we call the FIT principles, right? So our general guidelines.
Sorry, Brad.
Yeah, no.
I had a question. I showed 1, 2, and 3, and 4.
What's that?
I was showed on the Tabata 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, yeah.
So 1 is that's just the first day?
Yeah, no. That would be, in that version, yeah, that was broken down into each day. So a Tabata is 4 minutes long. It's 8 rounds of 20 seconds of work, 10 seconds of rest. So 20 seconds of work plus 10 seconds of rest is that is 30 seconds, right? So you do 8 rounds of that. That's 4 minutes in length.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, both of you guys get familiar with Tabatas, because if you ever get through a session and they just moved really fast and you're like, holy crap, we've got like 10 minutes left and the workout's over. If that ever happens and your client doesn't want to spend it doing like corrective stretches and stuff, do a quick little Tabata at the end, get a little calorie burn right there at the end of the workout. Jumping jacks for 20 seconds, rest. Mountain climbers for 20 seconds, rest. Jumping jacks for 20 seconds, rest. Mountain climbers for 20 seconds, rest. Do it back and forth. Boom, 4 minutes, you're done. You know exactly how long it's going to take. It's a super handy tool. But the thing that I pulled up, this thing right here, this was 4 days of Tabatas. Where did it go? Right here. This was 4 separate days. Each of them would have been 4 minutes. In order to get that 75 minutes per week, if you were to do all 4 of these every day for 5 days, this would take 16 minutes. 4, 8, 12, 16, right?
Oh, I didn't see the 4 times there.
Yeah. So, oh yeah, that makes sense.
No.
Good Lord.
No.
So I would, you would do each of these. And then that would be, if you did that Monday through Friday, that'd be enough. Honestly, it would be enough. And there's other versions out there too, by the way. I just saw another one that looked really good. This one. I do like it when it's just 2 exercises back to back. Air squats, jump squats, right? 1, 2, back and forth. So body weight squats and then jump squats. Also, you want to see a really hard one? You guys try this out. This is brutal, by the way.
No thanks.
Body weight squat, Tabata, isometric. Let's see if I can find this. Yeah. All right. So this sucks. I used to use this as like as a burner at the end.
I'm isometric when we're holding the position, right?
Exactly. That's where you hold one specific spot. Oh, come on. That's actually not. Squat, hold, Tabata. Come on. Let's see if this works. And then does she hold it? We got to get her through the 20 seconds here. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. This girl's doing it. Okay. So what you do, is you do the squats for the 20 seconds, and then normally you rest for 10 seconds, right? But in this version, you hold the bottom of the squat for 10 seconds. And then once the rest is over, you go back to squatting. So she's here and she's holding. This is her 10 seconds of rest. So she'll get to the end and then she's going to go back to squatting. I think I know where this is. I think this is in Orlando. Anyway, so she's going to squat. She's going to squat. And she can do 8 rounds of this. And then at the end of that 20 seconds, she sits and she holds for 10 seconds. 4 minutes straight. Dude, it is brutal. I tried to do it with push-ups once, but I've never been able to get through it. I've tried to do it with push-ups a lot of times. I've never, and you just hold the top position. Can't be, I swear it can't be done. I mean, it can be done by people who are much stronger than me, but I can't do it. Super fun though. Super, super fun. All right. Anyway, let's look at our fit principles here. I know we've mentioned these kind of a million times. It comes back a million times. So fit principles, this is something that is specific pretty much to all personal trainers. This is not a NASM thing. But it is looking at your general cardiovascular guidelines. And when I say general, I mean very general. These are just, things that have positive benefits. So the first thing you need to consider when writing a cardio program, you need to consider what the frequency is. So we talked about like the idea of 150 minutes per week, right? So in terms of frequency, if someone says, I want to exercise daily, right? They're like, I want to get used to working out every single day, Monday through Friday at least, right? Okay, great. So then exercising 5 days per week is your frequency. Like what is generally recommended is somewhere between 2 to 5 days per week. 2 if you're getting like 60-minute sessions in, 5 if you're getting 30-minute sessions in. Again, that's it's going to get us close to that 150-minute mark. You actually need about 75 minutes for the record if you're only doing 2 days per week, but there it is. Intensity, which is going to be sort of inversely related with our frequency, right? If the intensity is really, really, really high, you can't do high intensity every single day. So if intensity is high, frequency is going to be a little bit lower. Intensity, the level of demand of the activity, right? So maybe it's 65 to 75% of your heart rate max, or maybe it's 40 to 85% of your Vo2 max if you're doing a Vo2 version, right? Maybe it's, I want you to be out of breath in terms of a talk test. Maybe it's an RPE of 14. Maybe it's an RPE of 17. There's a million different ways we can measure intensity, guys. It isn't always just like, just heart rate. Time is the length given, right? So if we're looking at 5 days per week at 65 to 75% max intensity, maybe 30 minutes a day is perfect, right? So this, and that's what we're building here. We're building the ideal 150 minutes here. So 5 days per week, gentle cardio. This is someone who's going to be a little breathy, but not out of breath. They should be able to hold a conversation at this percentage of your heart rate max. Talking should be relatively easy. And then 30 minutes, just 30 minutes, get on a treadmill, have a conversation with your friend, and then go out for coffee afterwards. It's great. That's still physically active. Make a good choice with the coffee, but that's all it takes to keep us alive. Is it enough to experience get yourself to meet some weight loss goals, or is it enough to improve your strength and stuff? No, but it's enough to keep us healthy, and that's what we're prioritizing here. Type is the mode that you're of the exercise. So maybe it's walking, maybe it's swimming, maybe it's lifting weights. Hopefully it's lifting weights. Any version, right? Any type that's particular to you. For me, I go for a run twice per week right now. The next routine that I'm going to do, I'm only going to go for a run once per week. And then on top of both of those, I play Ultimate every week. That's the mode that works for me, is playing like a pickup sport. Some people basketball. Some people going for a walk, some people going for a hike. Some people it's, reading the news while they're on a recumbent bike in the morning. I'm not a huge fan of zoning out and focusing too much intently. I'm not a big fan of reading during cardio because I think it really takes your focus off your form and stuff. But again, that's not what this is about. This is about physical activity. So does that work? Yeah, it's great. And then lastly, enjoyment, which is the one that is NASM specific. Enjoyment is, the level of pleasure derived from the activity. How fun is the activity, right? That's what we're looking for. So those are sort of our general fit principles. Now, actually really quick, any questions on that? You two feeling good?
Yeah.
And we had like 1 billion people in the morning, and now it's just like, it's like everybody's going to be in the evening tonight. All right. So here is an example of a very general SOAP node for our client, John Smith, because I'm so creative, who is a server at Chick-fil-A. I think I asked my class to help me build this one the first time we did it. So there's a server at Chick-fil-A, and they suffer from hypertension and they have shoulder impingement, which is kind of interesting. So actually there's a weird connection between shoulder impingement and hypertension. Hypertension is someone who tends to be a little stressed out. They do those shallow breathing patterns and they get really tight trap muscles, which can affect your shoulders and lead to impingement. So not too surprising that we see this actually. This is where like a cardiovascular disease actually has like postural implications, which is odd, but it happens. So those are the two things we are going to consider. Their hobbies include playing video games, watching TV, and bowling. All right, bowling is a little active, right? So that's not bad. Like we said, so that is all the subjective pieces of information. Now we got to get our objective piece of what's the measurable assessment stuff, right? Here's some of the assessment stuff, right? But their blood pressure is 145/90, so that is high blood pressure. Their body weight is 295 pounds. So we are going to look for measurable improvements in body weight and blood pressure. In terms of postural distortions, we notice that their arms fall forward, they have a forward head posture, and their shoulders elevate. No surprises there, right? I mean, shoulder impingement, that makes sense, right? Probably messing up their bowling. Playing video games like this all day, right? Like it makes a lot. We're starting to really kind of see a pretty clear picture of like what this lifestyle kind of looks like, right? And we were like, okay, well, what was their recovery pulse during the step test? Unfortunately, they weren't even able to complete the step test. And that'll sometimes happen, guys. Sometimes you'll be doing that Rockport walk test and someone can't walk a mile. Sometimes you'll have a client, you're trying to do the step test, it's too high impact. And that's okay. If that's the case, then that's something that can actually be turned into a goal. We can say, all right, well, let's see if we can work our way up to this in a couple months, and then we can start measuring it and look for improvements. So the assessments that are very relevant for this client, blood pressure assessment is going to be huge. Overhead squat, so we can keep an eye on that arm posture as they pull the arm up overhead. And the pushing and pulling assessment, right? We're going to look at like, how do they push? Are they elevating like I am right now? Or do they keep their shoulders depressed when they push the way they should be, right? And let's get to that YMCA step test. Let's see if we can look for improvements there. And then here's the big section, right? Here's our plan. We want to address kind of, 4 big things here. And one that we're not really addressing, you can see here, I'm not really addressing nutrition in this plan. We're kind of kept it to the physical stuff. But what am I going to consider? My frequency, my intensity, my time, type, and enjoyment, level of enjoyment, right? So when it comes to cardiovascular health, Monday through Friday, we want to do 3 10-minute bouts of low to moderate intensity cardio, right? So I only want this person, I don't want them to do like 30 minutes straight, because that's going to be a little bit too much intense. So instead, we're going to focus on just in the morning, and then when they get in the afternoon during their lunch break, and then once they get home, they're going to do 3 10-minute walks. So stick those headphones in, go for a 10-minute walk. That's 3 of your favorite songs, right? Just before you head out for work. everybody can carve out 10 minutes before they go to work. It's just getting up 10 minutes earlier. You don't have to get up 2 hours earlier to go to the gym. You just got to get up, get out the front door, walk around the block. Then when you're at work during your lunch break, you got 30 minutes to eat, take 20 of it, go for a 10-minute walk, right? Eat while you're walking if you have to. When you get home for the day, before you do it, before you do anything to make dinner and stuff, again, headphones in, get around the block one more time. 10 minutes, it's not that bad, right? That's going to be a total of 30 minutes in one day. And then we go for a brisk walk 3 days a week. And so 3 days a week, either the lunch break or the morning or the evening, like Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I want it to be a little bit more brisk, right? A little bit more intense. And then we have one more intense walk. We have one longer 30-minute walk or hike on the weekend. So this way we're definitely fitting it into their lifestyle throughout the week. But here we are getting them to kind of adopt like something that, yeah, this is like more intentional, a little bit intense exercise. So we can see our frequency is pretty high, right? We got about like really, we want to see 3 days a week here, 10-minute little walks, right? So that's going to be, I kind of misinterpreted this at first. I said Monday through Friday. I made it sound like every day. We want to do 3 times a week, right? So that's going to be like Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 3 10-minute walks, okay? With one of them being really brisk. And then on the week, so that's, let's see, that's 30, 60, we're at 90 minutes so far, right, of total minutes per exercise. And then we do one long 30-minute walk on Saturday or Sunday. So that's an additional 30 minutes straight. So they're going to get about 120 minutes. That's just slightly below what we're looking for in total activity minutes per week. But remember, we've got our strength training stuff down here that we're about to address. So there's a little bit of cardio just to get a little calorie burn in there, right? Frequency is high, intensity is therefore low. For flexibility training, we are going to focus on upper body dysfunction. So we're going to look at the sternocleidomastoid, the levator scapulae, the internal shoulder rotators, the lats, the pecs, both of them, major and minor, and I don't know why this is at the end of the list, the upper trapezius. That should be over on the next stuff. But SCM, upper traps, levator scapula, lats, and pecs, right? All of that is going to kind of allow my client to get their shoulders back, right? Now, here's what's interesting. You'll notice, and Ben, we haven't been over types of stretches yet, but we'll get into that next week. Active isolated stretches instead of static stretches. Now, I know that normally we do static stretches in order to improve posture, but we're going to do active stretches here because this person has hypertension. And holding isometrics has been shown to increase hypertension. So we don't want to make it any worse. So instead of doing like a straight 30-second hold, they're instead going to do 10 repetitions where they do little short 2-second holds. And he's going to do two sets of that. So 2 sets, 2 seconds each, right? 20 repetitions. That's going to be about 40 seconds of stretching overall. So active isolated stretches rather than static, even though this is very much a stabilization level client. And then we're going to train in the gym 3 days per week. We're going to focus on total body workouts. We'll always have a chair available in case our client needs to get off their feet. This person's has a high body weight. So if the impact starts to get to them, the knees, the feet, the ankles start like aching a little bit, we're going to get them off their feet if we have to. So we're going to focus on strengthening and we're going to focus when we're building strength on strengthening their upper body postural muscles. Lower and middle trapezius are going to be huge. Rhomboid is going to be huge. Rotator cuff is going to be huge. Deep cervical flex is really important. So I'm just going to make sure they tuck their chin consistently and keep their head on top of their shoulders. Now you'll notice I'm going to keep them around 8 to 12 repetitions, which is relatively low, which means that like, you know, the intensity is going to be a little bit more moderate. It'll be a little bit heavier, but we don't want to go super heavy because I don't want my client to like have to struggle slowly through a rep, because again, that can raise blood pressure. So we're going to lift at a moderate tempo. That's like 2-0-2. Like, you know, I want it to look like it's like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 while they're lifting. No pausing, right? And then we are going to lift at stabilization exercises. So rather than doing a shoulder press, what am I going to do? A single leg shoulder press. Rather than doing bicep curls, what am I going to do? Single leg bicep curl, or standing on a Vo2 ball, right? Something that makes them unstable and wobbly. And we are going to build peripheral hard action workouts. So an example would be doing a body weight squat, followed by dumbbell curls, followed by a walking lunge, followed by a shoulder press. Legs, legs, biceps, legs, shoulders. Lower, upper, lower, upper, right? So you can see, put a little special notes down here. Avoid isometrics, avoid slow tempos, and hugely important for hypertensive clients, do not let them hold their breath. That only increases blood pressure. So this is a general plan. Now, is this an actual like workout? No, that's what I got to write next. But I've got my action plan, right? That's what this is going to look like. So any questions on that? Start to see a little bit of what soap notes look like, guys.
Looks good.
Yeah. Feeling a little confident. All right, guys. Well, I'll go ahead and kill the recording and see you guys tomorrow. For the record, we do have our homework today. So make sure you check out homework 1 for this